Welcome back, DIY car girls and car guys. What do I have for you today? Well, I have over here, I pulled off the ATM carburetor because I wanted this video to be more of a, you get your carburetor, your e85 carburetor, pull it out the box, put it on your motor, and how I initially like to set it up. And then from there, we'll figure out, do we need to make any changes to the tune, or is it good out the box? So today, that's what we're talking about. Okay, full disclosure, I have made some initial changes. Let me play this clip right here and we'll watch the wideband and what it's doing. Alright, so the first thing I want you to watch is when I shift gears. Watch, it has a little hole, a little lean hole every time I shift a gear. See it? Boom. That could be power valve related. Also could mean that I do not have the primaries open enough on the idle speed or enough idle air mixture in the screws. So let's go ahead and stab at it and we'll see what happens. So you notice it also went lean on the stab. This is what we're going to do. And one more thing that's a little different. I did ask them to give me 50cc accelerator pumps on the front and rear. Now yours might not need this, but you might as well order one anyways because that controls your off the hit. Like you're kind of like sitting there idling and you stab at it. If it has like a really bad delay and you can't fix it with you know, discharge nozzles and pump cams, chances are you need a bigger accelerator pump in the front. I did have this guy right here. This is what I had on it before. It is an adjustable secondary. There's a third hole you have to drill out for this to work, but what it does, it brings in your secondaries not quite one-to-one, but it brings them in a little bit sooner. So it kind of gives you a quicker transition from your primaries to your secondaries right there. And also what I did, I have these guys right here from Jegs, and I was looking at them, and if you notice, they're just a little bit larger, a little more volume of fuel will sit in your discharge nozzles. So I'm thinking that might fix that, along with giving it just a little more signal to the front, which I'll explain here in a little bit once I put this guy on there. A little more signal to the front to you know, help it hit the boosters a little faster to smooth that transition. Okay, so here's your carburetor. You got it out the box, right? So first thing I like to do, I like to take your primaries. Let's go ahead and close these all the way off. I'm gonna screw it in. See how it's opening up right here? Watch this right here. See how it's moving? So I close this all the way off. All right, there we go. So they're all the way closed. And if you look on the bottom, you have a transition slot right here. You can't see it, it's all the way closed. The rear, I like to open them up a whole bunch at first, and we'll set this when it's on the vehicle, right? And as far as your idle mixture, I go all the way in to where they're closed, right? And then I go half turns. 1 and half turns, 2, 3. I do that for every single one. Go this one. 1, 2, 3, and do it to the other ones. All the way closed. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, and of course the rear. See that transition slot right there? I open it a good bit just so it'll idle. It may idle high, but we'll adjust this later on once it's running. And of course, if you have put carburetors on the past, I'm not going to really go over this, but I guess I quickly will. Of course, you need gaskets, and depending on whatever plates you have, you need gaskets on those. Make sure none of your gaskets are protruding into your port. And then you put your carburetor on top, like so. And then we're going to bolt it down, make sure you have all the correct hardware, get it good and tight, hook up your lines, and we'll continue. All right, so we have all the fuel lines tightened up. All 4 bolts to the carburetor are tightened down. And on this side, we have the nitrous activation switch, and it's being activated by the secondaries. So I think our initial setup to get this guy started is done. We'll start it up and go from there. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, let me get this window a little lower so I can reach in here if I need to. We're just gonna flip on the pump. And we're gonna make sure it's not leaking and our floats are good. All right, that float's right there. Level for the float right there. That one's right there, right in the middle. That's kind of where I like them. Just kind of reach around in here, reach around in there. Make sure you don't feel any fuel leaking. Look up here, make sure you don't see fuel leaking out of the boosters because it'll be flooding. But we are looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and start her up. Okay, so I have a GoPro inside the vehicle so you can see the RPM and the wideband. So I'll be going back and forth when setting this up. Like I said, it's probably gonna idle high at first. It needs to get, you know, good and warm before you start really monkeying around with these guys right here. But usually 3 half turns has been pretty good for me. But we'll look at the wideband, we'll confirm, we'll rev it up, we'll see how it comes down, all that good stuff before we go on the road. And it's kind of a balancing act for this part right here. I don't like having a whole bunch of idle speed on the primaries for e85. And the reason why is because the fuel's heavier. I do probably like 80% of my idle speed on the rear. So what it does is it allows it to stay in that transition slot longer. And when you're having that much more pulling through the secondaries, what it does is it delays the signal to the boosters also, and it gets the speed up. So when you're putting around and this guy comes up, has enough speed that it breaks apart that fuel from the primaries to keep it nice and smooth, because it's really easy to get an E85 carburetor putting around like blip, 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 blip. Just because that fuel is so much more heavier and it needs so much more. So that's my one tip I can give you guys. Okay, so I have a mic on me and I'm gonna turn the GoPro on right here. There we go, GoPro's on. Let's get in and bring the idle down in the back right here. I'm going to bring it down right around 900. A little more. We're still way up there. We're actually at 1,000, so I'm going to come up with a little bit right here on the primaries. All right, up a little bit. That's looking pretty good. So let's come up with tad bit more on right here on the primary. And I'm going to come up a little bit. And I'm going to come up a little more right here on the secondary. Alright, look out, guys. So we got a problem right here. I just saw that. There we go. Sometimes when you first fill this up, you got to pump this a couple of times to get it fueled. And now we got it. There we go. So I need to come down a little bit. So we're a little high. I'm going to come down just a little bit right here. And a little bit right here. We're still a little fat, and we're not very hot on the temperature right now, so we need to lean it out just a little bit. So we're going to go back, we're going to go in this time slightly, just a little bit. We're going to lean out that idle just a tiny bit. And we're going to do it for each one, like so. And I'm going to come up just a tad bit here in the mirror. I think we're good. Let's see how it is. Coming up on temp now. We're like 150. I still think it's a little fat. Let me go ahead and juice it one time, clear it out. See, if you watch it, it'll go lean for a second. If you want to know if it's puddling in the intake, this will slowly start to go this way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lean it out. I'm going to lean it out until it starts to go this way. And then we'll come back in the middle, right around here. Alright. So we're going to lean it out some. A little more. Let's go look at it. I'd like it to float right around 14 at idle. You don't need this thing to be over here idling. There's no load in the motor. It's just going to load up the plugs, make it look like crap. We want this to be lean. Right around 14 is where I like it to be. Here we go. Slightly on this. more. Going in on the idle airspeed. Just clear it out. And then you sit out the tips up. Just the side's a little more peppy since we leaned it out some. Let's put it in gear. You always want to check it in gear also. It's going to get a little leaner in gear. So actually, it might be okay. Actually, I think we're there. And it should come down if it leans out some. Yeah, see it dropped just a little bit. I like mine to be slightly higher than like 1200 because it's a solid roller cam and it relies on, a lot of the parts rely on a splash to help lubricate it. It does have priority oiling in those lifters, but a little more idle speed tends to make them last longer. That's why I don't mind that high. But you put it in gear, it comes down. Now come on up over here. There we go. So I'm going to say we're pretty darn good. Only thing to do now is to drive it and see how it acts. All right, so we're back on the road. I'm in third gear right here, and I'm just cruising. Very, very, very light throttle. You see the AFR is fluctuating from 14s to the 15s, into the 13s, a little bit right there. You know, that's pretty good. I like mine when I'm just cruising to be nice and lean because there's no load in the motor, and I don't want my plugs to load up while I'm just putting around. Plus, I want that fuel economy because E85 definitely uses a lot more fuel. So I'm trying to be as economical and as clean as possible, just putting around. Remember, there's no load in the motor. You're not on it, so it doesn't really need that demand for fuel, just putting around. So I'm going to go up here. We're going to put it in a second gear. You'll notice it'll jump down to 12 because the motor is demanding more fuel, and I'll be on and off the throttle. You look right here, I'm going to hit it. I'll knock the tires free for a second. We'll drive through it, and then we're pulling through the gears. But you see, under high load, the motor is right there in the 12s where it's not going to hurt anything, and that's what you want. If you're on your car and it goes into the 14s at full load, you probably want to fatten it up with the 85 a good little bit. I like mine to be right around 12.0. That's where this motor likes it. Yours might not like that much fuel. It's just the best thing to do is to put on a dyno, see where it makes peak horsepower at what AFR, and go from there. So I'm going to pull off from a light. You'll notice right here it's going to go into 12s because I have a little load in the motor, so it's demanding more fuel. I'm going to shift first to second, the third. Doesn't have a lean spike no more, and I'm just going to cruise and see how it acts. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with this tune-up right here. It's not doing anything funny. It's not bucking like it's getting lean. It's not popping. It's not doing any of that silly stuff. So right now, I'm pretty happy with this tune-up. So by now, can you guys tell that I really like this ATM carburetor? It's a pretty nice unit. It reminds me a lot of this one right here that I had on the LT1 that ran just super good in all conditions. Like the LT1 ran a 1080 at 122 with that 750 on there. Of course, we haven't ran this yet. Well, let's see how it runs, but I almost don't even want to put the Holly back on just because this is running so good. And here's the plugs, and if you look at them, a lot of you guys will say, oh man, it's too lean, but I'm going to tell you right now, E85 you cannot read like gas plugs. You can see the timing on it, everything is nice and clean. But if you talk to anyone who's tuned a lot of E85 cars, you can make a hit, pull them out, and they look brand new. It's almost one of those things you got to tune on a dyno, or look at the fueling after a couple of hits, and you can start seeing how much is really in there. But they're really different to read than gas. You can't look at a gas tune-up and E85 tune-up and compare and like both of them, because it's just a different fuel in the way they burn. So, well, I think we're about done with this video. It's getting pretty long. Hope this helps you guys, and like always, keep on wrenching. Peace.